College is supposed to be about learning and new experiences. But sometimes, the things you learn aren't from books or even from the living. Tonight's story is about a substitute professor who showed up for class, even though he'd been dead for over 2 decades. It was a rainy Monday morning when my history professor emailed us that he'd be out sick for the week. The school had found a substitute to cover his lectures. When I walked into class, the substitute was already standing at the podium. He was an older man, maybe in his 60s, with pale skin, sunken cheeks, and clothes that looked slightly out of place. His suit looked like it hadn't been worn since the 80s. The strange thing was, he didn't have a nameplate on the board, and he never introduced himself. He just started lecturing. At first, I thought he was just old-fashioned, but the longer he spoke, the stranger it got. He didn't follow the syllabus. Instead, he told stories about the campus itself, about buildings that had burned down, about students who had gone missing. He spoke about them with such detail, as if he had been there. When I looked around the room, no one else seemed bothered. They were taking notes, nodding along. But when I glanced down at my notebook, I froze. My hand had been scribbling words I didn't remember writing. Sentences like, "He's watching you. Don't look at his eyes." Class ended. As everyone left, I was about to pack up when I realized the professor was staring at me. Not at the class, just me. He smiled, and his teeth were gray, like they were rotting. He said in this slow, drawn-out voice, "You remind me of my daughter." That sent a chill through my entire body. I grabbed my things and rushed out, but when I looked back, he was still standing at the podium, watching me. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was he? I searched the campus directory for his name, nothing. Then I tried searching online. That's when I found it. An obituary. The man who had taught my class had died over 20 years ago. The article said he collapsed during a lecture in that same building, the same classroom. The next day, I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Maybe it was just some weird look-alike. But when I walked into class, my heart dropped. He was there, same podium, same outdated suit, same lifeless eyes. But this time, the classroom was empty. No other students, just him. The lights flickered. He looked right at me and said, "You came back. Good. Now sit down." And the door behind me slammed shut. If a professor who had been dead for decades started teaching your class, would you sit quietly and take notes? Or would you run, even if the door was already closed behind you? Don't forget, if you're still watching, you're one of us now. Like the video, subscribe. More nightmares are coming soon. Every classroom has one seat that nobody sits in. Maybe people just don't like it. Maybe it's superstition, but sometimes the seat isn't empty at all. Tonight's story is about a college lecture hall, an empty desk, and a thing that never wanted to be left alone. It started on the very first day of class. Our lecture hall was huge, over 150 seats, arranged in rows that sloped toward the professor's podium. Students shuffled in, claimed their spots, laughed, and made noise. But there was one desk near the very back that no one ever touched. I noticed it because I almost sat there until a girl next to me put her hand on my arm and whispered, "Don't sit there." When I asked why, she just shook her head. A few weeks later, during a late-night study review, I was sitting near the front when I heard faint scratching behind me. I turned and froze. Someone was sitting at the empty desk. Not a student I recognized, not anyone I'd seen before. Their head was down, scribbling furiously in a notebook. The scratching sound was their pencil dragging across the paper. I blinked, and the seat was empty again. The next morning, when I opened my own notebook, I nearly dropped it. At the bottom of the page I had taken notes on, a phrase had been scribbled in jagged handwriting. "This is my seat. Get out." I swore I hadn't written it. My hand shook as I turned the page. The words were there again, darker, messier, filling the margins. I showed a classmate. He laughed it off, said I was pranking him. But later, he came back pale. In his notebook, the words had appeared too. That Friday, during lecture, I tried to ignore it. But halfway through class, I heard whispering. At first, I thought it was a student, but no one around me was talking. The whisper came from the back, from the empty desk. I turned my head slowly and saw it. A figure, crouched in the seat, too tall for the desk, its neck bent at an impossible angle. Its mouth moved too quickly for words to form, just a wet chattering sound. Its eyes were locked on me, and when I blinked, it was gone again. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I went online, searching for campus rumors. It didn't take long. Years ago, a student had taken their own life during lecture at that exact desk. No one sat there after. Every semester, professors left it unassigned, but never explained why. The story said the student's obsession had been being noticed. They had filled their notebooks with desperate messages, begging for someone to look at them. And now, that's exactly what I had done. The last time I went to class, the hall was packed. Every seat taken except the empty desk, but this time it wasn't empty. Everyone else seemed normal, listening, writing notes. But in my eyes, the room was wrong. The figure sat at the desk, taller now, skin gray and stretched. Its eyes bulged. And then, one by one, the other students began to look up. Their eyes were pale. Their mouths hung open. They weren't students anymore. I was the only one still human. And in the silence of the lecture hall, every desk around me scraped closer. Every classroom has an empty seat. Maybe it's just a superstition. Or maybe it's reserved for someone who never left. So the next time you sit down in class, ask yourself, whose desk are you really taking? Every campus has that one room. The one students whisper about. The one professors pretend doesn't exist. But this story isn't about ghosts in the halls or shadows in the woods. It's about something far more disturbing. Something that pretends to be you. This is the story of the mirror in the lecture hall. There was an old lecture hall on campus that no one really used anymore. Built in the 70s, it smelled of mildew and dust, with buzzing fluorescent lights that hummed constantly. Professors hated scheduling classes there, but occasionally, students were forced to use it for review sessions or overflow seating. One night, I stayed after class to finish a paper. Everyone else had left. The room was silent, except for the faint rattle of the vents. That's when I noticed it. At the very back of the hall, propped against the wall, was a tall mirror. Its frame was ornate, wooden, and old-fashioned, something that didn't belong in a college classroom. At first, I didn't think much of it. Probably some storage left behind. But when I glanced at it again, my stomach sank. The mirror reflected the classroom perfectly, except for one detail. My desk, the one I was sitting at in the front row, was empty. I leaned closer, squinting, and suddenly there I was. My reflection flickered into place, but instead of typing like I was, it sat motionless, its head bowed as if waiting. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was just my imagination, but the silence pressed in like a weight. The scratching of my pen on the paper sounded unnaturally loud. I glanced up again. This time, my reflection wasn't sitting anymore. It was standing in the back row, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and its mouth stretched into a grin I couldn't recognize as mine. I snapped my laptop shut, panic bubbling in my chest. That's when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, deliberate tapping against glass. My eyes darted to the mirror. My reflection was closer now, right up against the surface, its hand pressed flat against the glass, but the sound wasn't coming from the mirror. It came from the laptop screen on my desk. My reflection inside the darkened screen was knocking, desperate to get out. The next day, I couldn't get the image out of my head, so I started asking questions. Professors brushed me off, but finally, one older lecturer pulled me aside. His face went pale when I mentioned the mirror. The school removed the mirror, or at least they thought they did. He told me that decades ago, a psychology professor used a mirror in his lectures as part of a perception study. Students claimed they saw themselves doing things they weren't actually doing, smiling when they weren't, waving when their hands were still. At first, it was laughed off, until one student broke down in the middle of class. He smashed the mirror with his bare hands, screaming that his reflection was trying to crawl out. That night, I swore I wouldn't go back, but something about it gnawed at me. Curiosity, fear, maybe both. I returned to the hall. The mirror stood exactly where it had been, waiting. I sat in the front row, staring at it. My reflection stared back. For a long time, it didn't move. Neither did I. And then, slowly, it began to walk forward, step by step, down the rows of desks. Toward me, its smile stretched unnaturally wide. I held my breath. The reflection stopped its face, pressed against the glass. That's when I felt it. Cold breath against the back of my neck. My body went rigid. Slowly, I turned around. The desk behind me was empty, but in the mirror, there was something sitting there. It was me, or at least something that looked like me. A grotesque version, its head bent unnaturally to the side, black hollow eyes staring ahead, jaw unhinged and chattering too fast for words. I bolted for the door, my footsteps echoing in the vast, empty hall. I didn't dare look back, but I swore I heard the faint crack of glass splintering, echoing through the room. The next day, the mirror was gone, not shoved aside, not covered, gone completely, like it had never been there at all. But now, every time I pass the old hall, I feel it, in the glass of the windows, in my laptop screen, even in the bathroom mirror. My reflection lingers, just a second too long, smiling. Mirrors are supposed to show you the truth, but what if they don't? What if what you're seeing isn't you at all, but something waiting to take your place? So the next time you glance at your reflection, ask yourself one thing. Is it copying you, or is it watching you? If you're still here, you've heard what most people would never dare listen to. There are darker stories waiting. Subscribe if you want to hear them. But remember, once you do, you'll never be able to turn away. Thanks for watching. See you on my next video.